Thank you very much. Wow. Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends on this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And to every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. And in addition to having won the battleground states of North Carolina, I love these places, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, we are now winning in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska, which would result in us carrying at least 315 electoral votes. But it's much easier doing what the networks did or whoever called it, because there was no other path. There was no other path to victory. We also have won the popular vote. That was great. Very proud of that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And, winning the popular vote was very nice, I will tell you. A great feeling of love. We have a great feeling of love in this very large room with unbelievable people standing by my side. These people have been incredible. They've made the journey with me, and we're going to make you very happy. We're going to make you very proud of your vote. I hope that you're going to be looking back someday and say that was one of the truly important moments of my life when I voted for this group of people beyond the president, this group of great people. America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. We have taken back control of the Senate. Wow, that's good. And the Senate races in Montana, Nevada, Texas, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, were all won by the MAGA movement. They helped so much. And in those cases, every one of them, we worked with the senators. They were tough races. And I mean, the number of victories in the Senate was absolutely incredible. And we did tele-rallies. We did tele-rallies with each one of them. And sometimes we did 2 or 3 and it was amazing to look at all of those victories. Nobody expected that, nobody. So I just wanted to thank you very much for that. And you have some great senators and some great new senators. And it also looks like we'll be keeping control of the House of Representatives. And I want to thank Mike Johnson. I think he's doing a terrific job. Terrific job. I want to also thank my beautiful wife, Melania, First Lady. Who has the #1 best-selling book in the country. Can you believe that? Oh, no, she's done a great job, works very hard to help people. So I just want to thank her. But I want to thank my whole family, my amazing children, and they are amazing children. Now, we all think our children are amazing. Everybody here thinks their children are amazing, but that's a good thing when you think they are. But Don, Eric, Ivanka, Tiffany, Barron, Laura, Jared, Kimberly, Michael, thank you all. What a help. What a great. My father-in-law, Victor, is tremendous. And we miss very much Melania's mother, Amalia. We miss Amalia, don't we, huh? She would be very happy right now, standing on this stage. She'd be so proud. She was a great woman, that one. Beautiful inside and out. She was a great woman. I want to be the first to congratulate our great, now I can say, Vice President-elect of the United States, J.D. Vance. And his absolutely remarkable and beautiful wife, Usha Vance. And he is a feisty guy, isn't he? You know, I've said, go into the enemy camp. And you know, the enemy camp is certain networks. And a lot of people don't like this. Sir, do I have to do that? He just goes, okay. Which one? CNN, MSDNC? He'll say, all right, thank you very much. He actually looks fun. He's like the only guy I've ever seen. He really looks forward to it. And then he just goes in and absolutely obliterates them. Say a couple of words.
Wow. Well, Mr. President, I appreciate you allowing me to join you on this incredible journey. I thank you for the trust that you placed in me. And I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America. And under President Trump's leadership, we're never going to stop fighting for you, for your dreams, for the future of your children. And after the greatest political comeback in American history, we're going to lead the greatest economic comeback in American history under Donald Trump's leadership.
Thank you very much. He's turned out to be a good choice. I took a little heat at the beginning, but he was, I knew the brain was a good one, about as good as it gets. And we love the family, and we're going to have a great 4 years, and we're going to turn our country around, make it something very special. It lost that little that little thing called special, we have to make it so. We're going to make this so great. It's the greatest country and potentially the greatest country in the world by far. And right now, we're going to just work very hard to get all of that back. We're going to make it the best it's ever been. We can do that. If we had to wait longer, I don't know. It was going bad, and it was going bad fast. We're going to have to seal up those borders, and we're going to have to let people come into our country. We want people to come back in, but we have to let them come back in, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in legally. Let me also express my tremendous appreciation for Susie and Chris, the job you did. Susie, come here. Come here, Susie. Chris, come here, Chris. Susie likes to stay sort of in the back, let me tell you. The Ice Maiden, we call her the Ice Maiden. Come here, Chris. Come here, Chris. Susie likes to stay in the background. She's not in the background. Come here, say something.
This wasn't expected, but I just want to thank, obviously, President Trump for this journey. It was a great one, and he's a hell of a candidate, and he's going to be a hell of a great 47th president. And this team that we had, the best team, and, of course, even my boss, Susie Wiles, the best. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Susie. Look at this. I've never seen her be shot before. Susie. They're great. Everybody up here is great. Everybody up here is very special. But the Trump, who did you say? Oh, let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon. Now he is. Now he's an amazing guy. We were sitting together tonight. You know, he spent 2 weeks in Philadelphia and different parts of Pennsylvania campaigning. You know, he sent the rocket up 2 weeks ago, and I saw that rocket, and I saw it coming down. I saw it. It was, when it left, it was beautiful, shiny white. When it came down, it didn't look so pretty. It was going 10,000 miles an hour, and it was burning like hell. I said, what happened to your paint job? He said, we've never made a paint that could withstand that kind of heat. And but I saw it come down and turn around. And it was, you know, it's like 22 stories tall, by the way. It looks a little smaller than that, but it's big. And it came down, and you saw that fire burning. And I'm saying, only Elon can do this. It must be an Elon. And I tell the story. I told it last night. I had a man on the phone. I had the screen muted, no sound. I was talking to a very important man, happens to be here. And that very important guy, one of the most important people in, I would say, the country, actually. But, you know, I was president, and now it looks like I was going to be maybe president again, so I figured I could ask him to hold. So I asked him to hold. And especially because you're going to be president again, they hold. So I took the phone down, and I'm looking at the screen. I'm seeing this crazy thing that's going around and coming down. It looks like it's going to crash into the gantry. And I said, oh, no. And I said, do me a favor, do you mind holding for a couple of minutes? I want to see this. I thought it was a space-age movie or something. I put the phone down. Bad part, I didn't pick it up for 45 minutes, and he was holding. But this spaceship came down, and I saw those engines firing, and it looked like it was over. It was going to smash. And then I saw the fire pour out from the left side, and I put it straight. And it came down so gently, and then it wrapped those arms around it, and it held it. And just like you hold your baby at night, your little baby. And it was a beautiful thing to see. And I called Elon. I said, Elon, was that you? He said, yes, it was. I said, who else can do that? Can Russia do it? No. Can China do it? No. Can the United States do it other than you? No, nobody can do that. I said, that's why I love you, Elon. That's great. And you know, when we had the tragic Hurricane Helene, and it hit North Carolina, they were really devastated, the water. This was a big water, as big as we've ever seen, water hurricane. It built lakes out of nothing. Fields became lakes, and And the danger was unbelievable. And the people from North Carolina came to me and they said, would it be possible, at all possible, for you to speak to Elon Musk? We need Starlink. I said, what's Starlink? It's a form of communication. So I called Elon, and I'll tell you what, he had, and it was very dangerous. People would die. They had no communication. All the wires were down. I called Elon Musk. I said, Elon, you have something called Starlink. Is that right? Yes, I do. What the hell is it? He said, it's a communication system that's very good. I said, Elon, they need it really, really badly in North Carolina. Can you get it? He had that there so fast. It was incredible. So, and it was great. It saved a lot of lives. He saved a lot of lives. But he's a character. He's a special guy. He's a super genius. We have to protect our geniuses. We don't have that many of them. We have to protect our super geniuses. I want to thank some of the guys. You know, we have up here today the U.S. Open champion. He's a fantastic golfer. He's slightly longer than me. Hits the ball a little bit longer than me. Just a little bit. Bryson DeChambeau is up here someplace. What happened to Bryson? Where is he? Bryson. Oh, he was shot. He's hitting balls. Oh, he's on the way. He's hitting balls. Bryson. Oh, look at him. He's got a great career going. Great U.S. Open, Bryson. That's a fantastic job. And we also have a man, Dana White, who has done some job. He's a tough guy. So Dana started UFC and came to me, do you mind if I use your, nobody wanted to give him Marines because they said it's a rough sport, a little rough. And I helped him out a little bit, and I went, and they said, this is the roughest sport I've ever seen, but I began to like it, and he loved it, and nobody's done a better job in sports. And you know, he's a very motivational kind of a guy, what he does. He gets these fighters, and they really go at it, and it's become one of the most successful sports enterprises anywhere at any time. It's doing so well. I'd like to ask Dana just to say a couple of words because people love to hear from him. Dana,
please. Nobody deserves this more than him, and nobody deserves this more than his family does. This is what happens when the machine comes after you. What you've seen over the last several years, this is what it looks like. Couldn't stop him. He keeps going forward. He doesn't quit. He's the most resilient, hard-working man I've ever met in my life. His family are incredible people. This is karma, ladies and gentlemen. He deserves this. They deserve it as a family. I want to thank some people real quick. I want to thank the Nelk boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Bustin' with the boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan. And thank you, America. Thank you. Have a good night.
That is a piece of work. No, he's really an amazing guy. But most of all, I want to thank the millions of hardworking Americans across the nation who have always been the heart and soul of this really great movement. We've been through so much together, and today you showed up in record numbers to deliver a victory like probably like no other. This was something special, and we're gonna pay you back. We're gonna do the best job. We're gonna turn it around. It's got to be turned around. It's got to be turned around fast, and we're gonna turn it around. We're gonna do it in every way, with so many ways, but we're gonna do it in every way. This will forever be remembered as the day the American people regained control of their country. So I just want to say that on behalf of this great group of people, these are hard-working people. These are fantastic people, and we can add a few names like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He came in. And he's going to help make America healthy again. Now, he's a great guy, and he really means it. He wants to do some things, and we're going to let him go to it. I just said, but, Bobby, leave the oil to me. We have more liquid gold, oil and gas. We have more liquid gold than any country in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. We have more than Russia. Bobby, stay away from the liquid gold. Other than that, go have a good time, Bobby. We're going to be paying down debt. We're going to be reducing taxes. We can do things that nobody else can do. Nobody else is going to be able to do it. China doesn't have what we have. Nobody has what we have. But we have the greatest people also. Maybe that's the most important thing. This campaign has been so historic in so many ways. We've built the biggest, the broadest, the most unified coalition. They've never seen anything like it in all of American history. They've never seen it. Young and old, men and women, rural and urban. And we had them all helping us tonight. When you think, I mean, I was looking at it, I was watching it. They had some great analysis of the people that voted for us. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. They came from all corners, union, non-union, African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, Arab American, Muslim American. We had everybody, and it was beautiful. It was a historic realignment, uniting citizens of all backgrounds around a common core of common sense. You know, we're the party of common sense. We want to have borders. We want to have security. We want to have things be good, safe. We want great education. We want a strong and powerful military, and ideally we don't have to use it. You know, we had no wars. 4 years we had no wars, except we defeated ISIS. We defeated ISIS in record time. But we had no wars. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. But this is also a massive victory for democracy and for freedom. Together, we're going to unlock America's glorious destiny. We're going to achieve the most incredible future for our people. Yesterday, as I stood at my last stop on the campaign trail, I'll never be doing a rally again. Can you believe it? I think we've done 900 rallies approximately from them. Can you imagine? 901, something, a lot of rallies. And it was sad. Everybody was sad. Many people, I said, this is our last rally. But now we're going on to something that's far more important, because the rallies were used for us to be put in this position where we can really help our country. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make our country better than it ever has been. And I said that many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country and to restore America to greatness. And now we are going to fulfill that mission together. We're going to fulfill that mission. The task before us will not be easy, but I will bring every ounce of energy, spirit, and fight that I have in my soul to the job that you've entrusted to me. This is a great job. There's no job like this. This is the most important job in the world. Just as I did in my first term, we had a great first term, a great first term. I will govern by a simple motto: promises made, promises kept. We're going to keep our promises. Nothing will stop me from keeping my word to you, the people. We will make America safe, strong, prosperous, powerful, and free again. And I'm asking every citizen all across our land to join me in this noble and righteous endeavor. That's what it is. It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite. And we're going to try. We have to try. And it's going to happen. Success will bring us together. I've seen that. I saw that in the first term when we became more and more successful. People started coming together. Success is going to bring us together, and we are going to start by all putting America first. We have to put our country first for at least a period of time. We have to fix it, because together we can truly make America great again for all Americans. So I want to just tell you what a great honor this is. I want to thank you. I will not let you down. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than it has ever been before. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Former President Trump making about 25 minutes worth of remarks, essentially acknowledging that he has been called by other networks, not this one so far, as the next president of the United States, coming out with family and supporters there, a crowd that had waited a considerable amount of time, but obviously eager and happy about the outcome of the evening. As we said, NBC News has not projected that he is over the top yet, but he has a clear path to victory and the White House at this point.
And we just saw Barron Trump, 18 years old, cast his first vote in a general election for president today for his father. And people say that Barron Trump has actually had a lot of ideas about having his father appeal to young men his age.
One of the young men
seems to be part of the coalition that we're seeing take shape now.
You heard from former President Trump there. Again, we have not called the race for president for him. We have called the race for Pennsylvania for him, and that appears to be the critical key for him to get to 270 at some point throughout the course of the early evening. He has not officially won the popular vote yet, although he is leading on that front. We have not officially called control of the House of Representatives yet. That could take a while. He clearly feels confident about that, saying that they've won. Again, that is not the case just yet. The Republicans do have control of the Senate, but you heard former President Trump there say that we have an unprecedented and powerful mandate at this historic moment here. He is now, once we officially call the race, would be the oldest president ever elected, only the second president elected to a non-consecutive term. You saw him basking in the moment. At one point, he looked around and said something like, "Isn't this crazy?" I mean, he looked around and said that this even happened. He was extremely confident, at least publicly projecting that in the days before this moment.
He talked about having almost lost his life at an assassin's bullet this summer, and talked about how he feels that some of his supporters, or at least feel that he was saved for this moment, and so he took that tone as well.
And Savannah, he called it the greatest political comeback in the history of this country. He might not be wrong if you think about that. He survived 2 assassination attempts, right? One that was very close. 90 criminal accounts, right? He was in court throughout his campaign. He was primaried, won that primary, fought all those criminal cases. A lot of them are still ongoing right now. Again, survives the assassination attempts, loses his mother-in-law. A lot happened to him over the last 2 years. And here we are at this moment again where it looks like he's on his way to re-election.
Yeah, he's supposed to be sentenced, I think, the 26th of November on felony charges.
And that, even saying that sentence here, right, in this moment, is unprecedented.
You have to
right?
wonder, though, and I think we'll have to go back and look. I mean, was that what turned it for him on some level?
He would tell you that it is.
Yeah,
the minute he started getting indicted, especially that New York case that was
fundraising numbers went up.
Poll numbers went up. I mean, you could see the lines, the graph. I mean, Governor DeSantis thought he was on his way to the nomination. He was leading in all the polls. All the criminal indictments start, and his numbers start to shoot up. Democrats, even though they said they were following the letter of the law, some Democrats, Republicans will say, played politics with the law, and they went after him for political reasons. That might have been the biggest political miscalculation in the history of our country.
You talk to a lot of Democrats. They wonder if perhaps it took the Department of Justice just too long to get this process moving. I mean, if you talk to the folks that sat on the January 6th Select Committee, they wanted the DOJ to move a lot faster than they did. It wasn't until the Select Committee had done all of its work and then handed those referrals over to the Department of Justice that they moved specifically on the cases related to January 6th. And by that point, we were already into the campaign season. It became a political issue instead of a legal issue, and that may be something that they look back on and regret.
It was really the big X factor hanging over this entire race. How would his legal challenges impact his political prospects? But just zooming out, we're talking about how historic this moment is. You have to take a moment to think about how historic Donald Trump is as a political figure. Think about when he first ran for office back in 2015 and made disparaging comments about Senator John McCain, and a lot of people declared that his political career was over in that moment. And what we have learned from having covered Donald Trump is that he is immune to things that other politicians would not be able to survive. And now here we have this extraordinary campaign where he has survived 2 assassination attempts, where he's on the track to be the oldest president in office. And again, just the second person in 100 years to serve non-consecutive terms.
Let's talk about that mandate that he has claimed, a mandate that's political speak for saying the people have spoken. My election win was so convincing that I have been sent to do X, Y, and Z. So, Ryan, you'll be covering Capitol Hill.
Right.
What is that mandate, do you think?
Well, I think, first off, there is one person that's probably watching the returns coming in, still very closely watching a lot of House races across the country, and his name is Hakeem Jeffries, who is poised to potentially become the first black Speaker of the House. The House is very much in doubt right now, and if Democrats still controlled the House, that's going to be a big red light to any Donald Trump legislative agenda. Even though the margins are going to be tight on any level, it's going to be very difficult for him to push through a lot of these big ticket items that he's talking about. But to your point, Savannah, it is going to be very hard for even the more moderate Republicans who don't necessarily describe themselves as being from the MAGA wing of the party to resist the pull of what Donald Trump has accomplished here tonight. He definitely has the pulse of the people, especially the people that voted for him. And I think he's going to go to these members of Congress and say, look, I just ran on this particular agenda and I was successful. You now have to make that agenda a reality.
I think there's an existential question for this president and, frankly, for the next Congress, which is how can they try to bring this country together? We saw in these polls, we saw in these results tonight just how divided, how divisive things have become. Donald Trump has not necessarily run on a unity message.
Do you think he has a mandate of unity?
No, I don't. But I do think that there is going to be a hunger for that. It's something that former President Barack Obama promised, that President Biden has promised. It hasn't happened yet. The country has only gotten more divided over time. I think the nation's hungry for
And Savannah, he set a high bar. He has set a high bar. He said he's going to figure out what's happening in Ukraine with Russia. He's going to solve it on day one. And also the war in Gaza with Israel. He's going to have 2 giant issues that you could argue had a huge impact on this presidential election. And he said on day one he's going to solve them. Well, he set the bar. What will he be able to do? And the entire world's watching this election right now. We're talking about all the issues at home. The entire world. There's a new president in Mexico. What's going to happen with immigration? There's so much going on right now globally. And now Donald Trump, once again, reelected, it's going to shake up the global political
course. And the things he can do unilaterally, such as tariffs, for example, which will have an immediate effect on the economy. So, I mean, look, he has the levers of government. He has the United States Senate. He might have the House.
Some might argue he has the Supreme Court as well.
I was just about to say he's got the ideological balance as the Supreme Court. He may get to appoint 1 or 2 more. Right. And so when you have all of that power and the responsibility, you also have the accountability. So if he has this mandate and acts on it, then in another couple of years, we'll be talking right here at this table about whether or not Americans approve of the job that's been done.
Keeping in mind that the policies he's put forward that he would do in his first day, in his first 100 days, for example, they are controversial and in some ways divisive policies. When you look at even that sort of core tenet of potentially mass deportations on day one, we saw in the exit pollings that actually more Americans would like to see a legal pathway for immigrants here, a legal pathway to citizenship than they would mass deportations. The other interesting point here is who he is going to be surrounding himself with, which we've touched on tonight. And it was interesting to watch that speech. He shouted out Elon Musk. You heard the Dana White, UFC head, shout out to Joe Rogan, the super popular podcaster. This is the coalition he has built around him. He's also talking about RFK Jr., of course, former third-party candidate, through his support behind Donald Trump, saying he has a lot of ideas. He wants to go do them. We're going to let him go do it.
Just go get him, Bobby.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Somebody who is sort of notable in the anti-vaccine community. So I think it's going to be obviously something to watch who he installs in some of these key roles here as he moves forward.
Well, you remember the inauguration speech at American Carnage? That really set the tone. That was
it did,
that
Lester.
and the crowd size.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, look, he has always been defined by, I think, his approach to immigration, illegal immigration in this country. Obviously, during his first term, he was going to build the wall. Mexico was going to pay for the wall. Now he's going to, he says, enact this mass deportation force. So we will have to see what that looks like, what the contours of that look like, and how that plays out. But again, that at the very core, when you think about what he's going to do on day one, and this got a lot of questions for both of these candidates, That was one of the things.
And I have to
really
wonder, too, when it
highlighted.
comes to immigration, Kristen, this was something that Democrats, it took them too long to figure this out. But this was something Democrats recognized was a problem, that they were losing a significant amount of support around, and that needs to be fixed. And there's certainly no universe where Democrats are going to support mass deportation.
Right.
But they put forward the most conservative border bill in a generation, a whole suite of policies that in a normal universe Republicans would have supported. Could that be the first opportunity for them to find some common ground? Let's do something on the border immediately. Let's strengthen and secure the border, find a way to allow people to enter the country legally. We've been talking about them trying to solve immigration in Washington for generations.
Generations.
But
yes.
could this be the opening? Because especially if the Democrats control the House, he's not going to be able to just ram through whatever he wants.
And I wonder if he calls Greg Abbott in Texas and says thank you, because Greg Abbott, remember, busing the migrants from the border to cities all across America and putting immigration on the front page of every major newspaper day after day after day, a huge issue right here in New York City.
Let's go to Garrett Hake. Garrett is still at the Trump headquarters. Garrett, you've been listening to the conversation. What would you like to add?
Well, a couple of things, Lester. First of all, I heard a former president who sounded surprised to be back up on that stage, that moment about saying how crazy this was. You know, I've been at all his last rallies these last few weeks. I was at his news conference today. They all sort of had a little bit of a valedictory feel, as if he wasn't sure that he was going to have the opportunity to address these crowds or address reporters again, which he will now have. You mentioned the idea of promises made, promises kept. He has a lot of promises that he's going to have to keep, and he's been adding to them basically every day of this campaign, rolling out new policies time and again, oftentimes without explaining how he'd pay for them. In the middle of this campaign, he talked about a free IVF program that would be paid for by the government or by insurance. He almost never mentioned it again, but these are things that are out there, and I think this coalition that he has built are going to expect action on. The other thing that I'll notice, I'll just say, you know, for folks who have not seen a lot of Trump rallies, you kind of got a expedited version of a Trump rally here tonight with a little bit of unity added to it, but not a lot. And I say that because of two things I didn't hear. I never heard the name Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, and I never heard any mention of their supporters, millions of them, tens of millions of them, who he will now, it appears, be the president for again. And he did say at that news conference today that, you know, he wanted to try to reach out to those people. I'm not sure when that outreach will start, but other than sort of broadly saying he wants to heal this country and talking about his agenda, we did not hear that from Donald Trump tonight.
That's a good point. Do we know if there's been any communication this evening between the two camps?
I have asked everyone who I can think would know that information, up to and including Donald Trump himself, and I don't know yet, Lester. I mean, the Harris campaign has not indicated that they think this race is over yet, so I'd be surprised if there's been a phone call between them.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.